Testing. Hey, what's up? I'm Jacob Blitzo, your Elixir Mentor, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Elixir Mentor Podcast. This is where we discuss everything related to Elixir, from interviews with enthusiasts, pioneers in the community, to innovative projects and libraries shaping Elixir's future. So let's get started. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome Carlo Gilmar. He's a software engineer at Erlang Solutions and the founder of Visual Solutions. Carlo brings a unique blend of technical expertise and artistic flair to our community. He's known for his innovative approach to transforming complex technical concepts into captivating visual narratives. With his experience in the Erlang ecosystem and his passion for visual storytelling, Carlo offers a fresh perspective on how we can communicate and understand technology. Carlo, it's fantastic to have you on the show. And thank you for being here. Do you want to just give a little brief introduction of who you are and what you do?
Hello, and thank you for the good introduction. It's really inspiring. I love it. Yeah, so I'm Carlo. I live in Mexico City. I work as a software engineer for Erlang Solutions. And also I have my personal project, which is Visual Partnership, to combine visual thinking with software development. If you are an active member of the Elixir community, maybe, especially on Twitter, maybe you have seen some graphic recordings for Elixir conference that I used to draw. So that's my work.
That's awesome, dude. I love all the drawings you do. They're really cool. And I was really excited when you drew one of my podcast episodes. So that was cool.
Oh,
It is forever saved. Like I actually should probably print it and hang it up because I think it's pretty cool.
And that means a lot of work because I have a lot of years doing this. So that means a lot of practice, improving this kind of skills. So I feel like it's a good contribution for the community. So
Yeah, I agree. I think it's amazing. So what first got you into software engineering? When did you know you wanted to be a developer?
I studied informatics engineering in Mexico City.
Okay.
But the thing is, in Mexico, the universities are not good. So for me, my university was a nightmare. So that was a problem because I understood that I wanted to work in technology, but in that moment, I didn't know what it means to be a software developer or what kind of activities you will do in this job,
Mm-hmm.
So fortunately, I started to attend meetups in my city, and then I started to make friends, and they were working as a software developers. So they share with me a lot of insights about what it means working for software. And after that, I got my first job as a developer. I was a junior developer, so I started to my first months in this company, which is Making Devs. And for me, it was like a really important because in that moment, my boss was a really inspiring developer because they have like a different point of view about technology. And he started to show me things like Git, GitHub, version control, object-oriented. And in that company, the team used to learn unknown technologies. So while a lot of companies were using technologies such as Java or PHP or C Sharp, they were using Groovy, which is a language from the Java ecosystem, like a Java brother. And in that moment, that was really cool for me. Like, what is Groovy? Sounds like Ruby, but it's not Ruby. It's Groovy for the JVM. So what is this? And I remember that my boss told me, "Oh yeah, because we can use different programming languages for Java projects, instead of just Java. And Groovy is a more it's a dynamic programming language. It's really fancy. It's easy to understand, easy to read, easy to code. So we choose this for our tool. So my first 2 years working as a software developer, I was using Groovy, and then all the team start to learn Elixir. So I was in that moment in the company, and for me always was like learn something new that is not trendy, you know.
Hmm. I love that. So it's actually kind of nice. So the company you're already working for made the transition to Elixir, and that's kind of what got you into
Yeah.
the Elixir community then?
Yeah.
I love that.
I think that we have like this mindset about that you can learn any kind of technology. So my boss was a really big fan of Lisp and other hidden programming languages. And I remember that if you go to sites like Exercism.io, you will discover a lot of programming languages such as React or Ava or NIMP or uh, programming languages that are really hidden, that have really small communities. But we were really big fans of Elixir, so the plan was like start to learn and then move to start to projects with our clients in that moment. So that was my first steps in this community.
Nice. So the company you worked for, it sounds like you were kind of like a development shop.
Mhm.
You okay, nice. Very cool.
More a consultancy.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So what brought you so now at Erlang Solutions, are you an Elixir developer or are you Erlang?
I'm an Elixir developer.
Okay. So what kind of drew you that direction? What made you want to work for Erlang Solutions?
When I start to share my graphic recordings with the world, I remember that I like it to see the Code Beam talks, and the Code Beam is a brand from Erlang Solutions.
Mm-hmm.
And in that moment, I remember that I said, "Oh, Erlang Solutions is probably one of the best companies doing Elixir and Erlang." So for me, it's like the company, you know. And I I feel like my sensations were what I need to learn as a developer to get a job outside Mexico and have a job in these companies, because for me that was a really big dream.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately for me, I think that my skills were enough. And one day I received a message from Francesco, which is the founder of Erlang Solutions and the technical director, because he wanted some help to illustrate some Erlang and Elixir trainings. And previously, I shared my graphic recordings with him, and he told me that they have this project and they wanted to some illustrations, but it's hard to, it's really hard to illustrate technical concepts if you are just an illustrator, because you have the context. Without the context, it's really complicated. So we start to do this project for a few months, and in that moment, Francesco asked me about my background, and I told him I'm a software developer. I don't have a job. I'm looking for one. And Francesco told me, "Oh, we have an Americas team. You should apply." So while I was working with him in the drawings, in that moment I was doing my recruitment process at the same time. And after that, we realized that I have the enough skills to be a part of the team.
That's amazing. I love that. When did you start doing your like visual storytelling? What got you into that? Have you just always kind of been on the artistic side of things? Is that just a passion?
It's really funny because actually I start to practice visual thinking at the same time that I start my career a software developer. In a meetup for about Agile and Scrum, I remember that one guy introduced visual thinking for all the community. And I said, okay, visual thinking is explained information with structure and organization, but also with drawings. It's nice, but looks like it's my kind of style to learning and communicate. So this looks like interesting for me. In that moment, I start to learn this skill and practice, and it's really funny because I remember that my first tech conference that I attend in my professional life is a Mexican conference, which is organized by Guru Software. And I remember that in that event, I was really confused because I can understand nothing. I attend like 5 talks about cloud computing, about testing, about continuous integration, about AWS. And I was really frustrated because I can understand nothing. And this is too much because I'm learning just the basics. This is too complex for me. And I said, okay, it's too complex, but I can start to make my notes. And after that, I can start to search these terms and just see what happens. I can ask to my teammates about these terms that are really new for me. So no problem. I can start to do this. In that moment, of course, I bring my notebook with pens. It's really, really wild sketch notes. That was my beginning.
I love that. I think like once you've been developing, I think I'm coming on like 10 years, you forget how overwhelming it is. Everything you have to learn. I remember my first conference, it was an iOS conference because I originally became an iOS developer. And you don't realize all the technologies you have to learn. Like just like when you mentioned Git, now you have to learn Git. It's not just programming. You need version control, and then you have to start learning how databases work and like all these different technologies, right?
Yeah, and
And
actually about that, the first tool that my team introduced to me was Git for version control because it's really important to know how to contribute to a project.
yeah, absolutely.
And I have a teammate that tried to explain it to me, and she told me, okay, we have 6 commands and you have to use this receipt, and this is the branch model, and that's all. And I say, oh my god, this is so complex. What is that? What it means a commit, or why we have this receipt to apply 6 commands? I feel really frustrated with this because I'm not understanding what I'm doing. So it's
Hmm.
complicated that. After that, my boss uh, talked with me, and he told me, okay, Git is complex, so take care. I can teach you the basics. After that, I realized that Git is a really complex tool to learn. I remember that I searched for tutorials and resources in the web, and I can understand nothing. Especially the branch model is complex for people that are really new in software.
It definitely is. And then the idea of like merge conflicts and all of that.
Ah, yeah, 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 yeah.
I remember being terrified of merge conflicts.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I feel you. And one of the things that I started to do in that moment was drawing my understanding. So, okay, what is a commit? A commit is a unit of changes. Uh, what it means? The commands. The commands are commands, but that means that there are a theory behind that. So I start to sketch how Git is working in your project, understanding this part about the commits. And after that, I realized that drawing this understanding makes me feel more confident with what I was learning, you know? So for me, it is one of my favorite talks. Uh, Many years after that experience, I have the opportunity to teach backend lessons for a bootcamp in Mexico City, which
Awesome.
was sponsored by Microsoft. So I have a lot of students there, and I decided to teach Git, and I use my first designs when I was learning Git to explain how Git works. And fortunately, we have really good results on that.
That's awesome. I think if you can remember the struggle when you were learning something, you're a better teacher when you teach it versus I know a lot of engineers, especially when they're in the weeds and they're doing really complicated things, they have trouble breaking it down for beginners.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's important to remember your roots. I remember my struggles. I remember when I couldn't even read documentation and have it make sense to me. And it was just so hard. And I was like, I need a tutorial, I need a video, I need a blog post, or I won't be able to do anything. And when you finally can break through that barrier, that's when I feel like when you actually start learning how to be a developer.
Yeah, that's true. And also, one of my favorite conference are the Git Merge, which is about just Git, which is a really specialized conference. And for me, it was like, so these kind of videos on YouTube was like, oh, these guys are so experts on Git and they are amazing. And my dream is like be there explaining Git or something related because this is my passion. After the bootcamp, I sent a call for talks to the Git Merge 2 years ago in the latest edition in Chicago, and I have the opportunity to be selected on the speakers lineup to explain all of this long journey about Git.
That's amazing. See, like I think it's pretty awesome. When I take notes, it looks like a really messy, gross like UML flow chart. And then when you take notes, it's actually like beautiful and you can sketch. So I love that. And I feel like it's become kind of your superpower for being able to visually teach people complex problems.
Yeah, and also it's about structured and organized information. I think that that's the point. Be
Yeah.
able to recognize these patterns and have this flow. Be clear with that. Is that makes you feel that art really good illustrations.
Mm. When did you actually, like, what inspired you to actually start Visual Partner?
For me, a big dream was travel to attend conferences. So I have the opportunity to attend my first conference outside Mexico thanks to GitHub because I was on a GitHub education program, which is GitHub Campus Experts. So GitHub helped us to give workshops in our universities to share technology content in our local communities, and they used to support our travel to attend GitHub conferences. So my first conference was a student conference, which is HackCon. I have the opportunity to travel to Berlin to attend this conference, and I was really amazed with all the content that the people was sharing. And I start to make my sketch notes. In that moment, I used paper and markers, and all the people were amazed with that. And they told me, "Oh, Carlo, you are doing this in on real time, so that's nice because let me take a picture of this." And I was really curious because I wasn't expect that of the people with my drawings. And I say, okay, this works. The people like these kind of drawings. So I feel like I can do something with this. And for me, my goal in visual thinking combined with technology is like make this bridge between complex content and the audience. I feel like this is my goal, this is my passion. I feel like I have the skills to do this. After that experience, I start to learn how to use the iPad with Procreate to create the illustrations. And after that, I start my Visual Partner project to capitalize all of these experiences.
I love that. I'm so curious. So, can you kind of like break down, do you like when you draw something, do you rewatch talks or do you just do it all on the fly live?
It's all on the fly, on real
That
time.
it's so impressive. Like I love that. Like cuz I'm just all the stuff that you share on like Twitter and LinkedIn, it's so impressive that like you even know you kind of even workflow it in a way where it even all manages to fit
Yeah.
in, on one page essentially, right?
Yeah, I feel like drawing graphics recordings, it's a really hard and complex skill, and you need a lot of practice to develop this. Seriously,
Mhm.
I have a lot of practice doing this. So it's there is a technique to do this because, for example, you can have like a visual dictionary with your icons, just to remember which icons to put in your graphic recording. But also, you need to practice your active listening to get all the message on the fly and be able to draw in at the same time.
Yeah, I
Mm,
feel like I I'd be like so ADHD. I couldn't do it.
yeah, there are a lot of practice there and techniques and a lot of tricks there. If you see my sketch notes, um, I put color, but the color is really minimalism. So
Mhm.
this is art is part of the technique that I have evolving during the last years. So yeah.
Can you kind of try to break down your process for us? Like how, like when you're listening, say it's this conversation, how would you even begin? Like, how do you know when you want to take a note and start drawing?
First of all, I prepare the template. The template it means put the title on the center. Pretty much that's all. And after that, I start to listen the talk, and while the speaker is speaking, I start to draw, to put all the ideas in text. In that moment, at the same time, I used to put some icons on the sketch note, and when if the talk is about 1 hour, I used to see my watch to stop like 15 minutes before the talk ends to put all the ideas on the graphic recording. And in the iPad, I have the opportunity to move the elements. So if I make a mistake, I can fix it. Um, and after that, the last 15 minutes, I used to put the color, and that's all.
I love that. I feel like the iPad is probably a game changer because how often do you run out of space and have to move things around?
Yeah, 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 yeah. But honestly, I think that I really love the use the iPad because it's really practical. But I love to draw using paper and markers. It's two different dynamics.
Yeah, I can imagine. And there's no forgiveness there.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
can't mess up with a marker, can you?
oh, yeah.
I think we've already touched on this a little bit, but I want to just like reiterate and discuss it a little more. But like the reception to your visual approach in the tech community,
Yeah.
it's been pretty amazing, right? You haven't ever received any negativity, I'm sure, because I feel like everyone loves your work.
Yeah, fortunately, at the Erlang Solutions, we organize the Elixir Europe, the Code Beams. There are the Lambda Days and the RabbitMQ Summit. So sometimes I used to work with the conference team to draw some graphic recordings, and then other community members invite me into other Elixir conferences This year, I attend the Gig City Elixir at Chattanooga with Bruce State, and I illustrate 3 days of Elixir talks because the Gig City Elixir was for 2 days, but also we have the NerdsConf, and I draw like 30 talks in that 3 days.
That's amazing. Yeah, I wanted to go to that so badly, but I had prior engagements that I couldn't get out of, unfortunately. But I want to start making my face present at Elixir conferences. I think it'd be a lot of fun. And I
Yeah.
was supposed to go to Lisbon this year,
Ah, right.
and the morning I was supposed to catch my flight, I woke up with the flu.
Mm.
It was horrible. So that got canceled, but there's always next year. And
Yeah.
maybe I'll make it to Orlando this year. I'm not sure. We'll see. Are you doing Orlando for the Elixir Conf?
No, I don't think so. Not for
Okay.
this year, but I hope like maybe next year.
Okay. So at Erlang Solutions, what is your role primarily? Are you working on things? Are you building stuff, or is it primarily education and trainings?
Oh no, actually, I'm a consultant. So as a
Okay.
developer, we are assigned with different clients to work in their teams.
Oh, okay. So you're working on projects every day then.
Yeah.
Very cool. I love that. How I feel like you're probably a little more familiar with the developments in like the Erlang ecosystem. Is there anything that is changing and coming along that excites you a little bit?
Yeah, I feel like Elixir for me, it's a great programming language because I feel like it's very open to everybody that wants to learn it. But Erlang is more complicated. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that there are like two worlds. You can do projects in Elixir without know the Erlang theory, and that's nice. You can be happy without processes and concurrence
Mm-hmm.
and distributions, and you can create your own applications for your day by day. But in the moment that you need all the power, you will need to study the Erlang things. So that's where the journey starts to become really interesting because there are a lot of things to understand in that point. So I feel like I would like to create more content about how Elixir developers can understand better this theory about Erlang. So this year's I had been studying Erlang and how the Beam virtual machine is working to
Mm-hmm.
try to sketch infographics, blog posts, and share more content about this. My goal for this year is to start to make an Elixir training, mostly for Mexican developers in Spanish, to teach the basics of Elixir, but also the basics of Erlang to show how the people can take advantage of all the features of Erlang using Elixir.
That's awesome. I love that. And we need more people making Elixir content, don't we?
Definitely.
I think what's awesome with Elixir is it brings a more like modern syntax, easier to learn language, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then, so you don't even have to really understand Erlang or OTP or anything really to get started. And so you can get your foot in the door and you can start making really cool projects. And then you slowly develop the need or at least the desire to understand a little more, right?
Yeah.
And then you can start diving into the beam and
Yeah, and
all
it's
that.
it's complicated for me to structure all the journey to learn Elixir, and probably you will have to some similar questions because you structure content to teach Elixir, and
Mm-hmm.
for teach Elixir for new people means teach a new approach, which is the functional programming, but also a new programming language, which means new syntax, a new environment, and also try to teach the Erlang theory. It's a lot of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember It's like probably like 3.5 years now. When I first started learning Elixir, I came from, JavaScript and Swift and, other object oriented ideologies. And it was so hard for me to understand functional programming. And I like kind of was writing Elixir improperly because I wanted it to operate like a mutable language. And that I think is the hardest thing to overcome. And like with teaching basics, I think it's very important to talk about transforming objects and immutability and what happens along the way, and then stick with data types and basic syntax stuff and avoid OTP and gen server stuff. I know that's the cool shiny object that everyone wants to learn, but I think it's kind of distracting and you start using it in the wrong way.
Yeah,
Like you use it for, I don't know, global state and things that you shouldn't be using it for, right?
yeah,
Yeah. So I think you just have to break it down and start really simple.
yeah. The last year, I started to make some workshops to teach visual thinking in person with my friends and my apartment. Um, but the thing was like, start to model a way to teach. It's like my workshop model using visual thinking, which is a really easy stuff because it's about drawing, so you can get fun with these kind of activities. But more than that was start to sketch a teaching model, which is really interesting because the way that you are structured, not just the content, the way that you are structure the presentation of the topics, the journey, the resources, how you are including your feedback from your students. It's really important. It's the whole experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to start with visual thinking because my goal was take this model, but for teach Elixir. So take the same that I'm doing with visual thinking for Elixir, which includes drawings, graphic recordings. Probably one book that I really love is The Brain's Programmer by Felina Hermans. And this book is really amazing. She explained cognitive processes that are involving when you are coding. She explained how works the long-term memory, the short-term memory, the processing, the processing power of your brain. And she mentioned that um, the reason to have design patterns in object-oriented, yeah, it's a technical thing, but also you can explain design patterns as a result of um, cognitive charge. She explains that if you have this cognitive charge in a design pattern, it's more easy to your brain to understand this because that becomes your standard language. So that's the
Mm-hmm.
point. Develop the standard language and then go for the next steps. So I really recommend this book for all the content creators because it's really, really, really interesting.
You said the programmer's brain.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to read this one. I got it pulled up now. I'll put it in the description below, guys, after this, so everyone can find it. But
Okay.
I feel like I'm not artistic. I can't draw like you, but I feel like my brain automatically takes concepts and I kind of see like visual flow charts and things instead of just like, retaining memory. So I can see design patterns and things in my head, but it's
Yeah.
definitely hard for me to spit it out on paper.
Yeah.
But I love, dude. I I I all I'm thinking right now as you were talking about your course, how cool it would be to bring you like partner with you and you can do random drawings during some of my videos, and I
Yeah.
think that would be awesome.
Yeah. Definitely.
I think it would
So,
be really cool.
yeah, we should do the collaboration Elixir Mentor Fit Visual Partnership.
I know. I think it would be really awesome
Yeah.
because all like I'm not a big fan of over editing because
Mhm.
it just takes so much time. But
I,
if we
I
could just have you do your visual drawings like as I talk or as you talk, I think that would be really cool.
yeah,
We'll have to see. We'll have to see if people want something like that. But I think it'd be a lot of fun.
yeah.
Um, when you see the relationship between like art and technology, do you feel like it's a natural evolution? Like, do you think art kind of belongs with technology, like with your visual drawings and learning?
I like to say that visual thinking is about presence. Be on the moment. And the art is a human skill, I feel. And in my workshops to teach, when I'm teaching visual thinking basics, the first lessons is reconciliate with your drawings, because that means that people have a lot of misconceptions about drawing. Many of my students told me, "Hey Carlo, I don't know how to draw, but I would like to see if I can learn this." And my answer is, don't worry, because this is not about drawing beautiful things. There is not a qualification on this, you know. This is more a relationship with yourself. You have to deal with your own misconceptions about the errors, about mistakes, about experiment, about to be freedom, about, you know, the creativity is something that is, I don't know, it's complex to explain how the creativity evolves in the people, because there are a lot of people with this fear about to do ugly things, or about make mistakes, or about um, yeah, this misconception about the drawing. If you are drawing, you have to do something.
The fear you're not putting perfect out there, right?
Yeah,
Everyone fears that because I talk to people that are like, I want to make a YouTube channel so badly, but how do you deal with looking like an idiot? I was like, dude, you can't know everything and everyone makes mistakes. So that's how
yeah,
you deal with it. You just move on and you like if I make a mistake in a video, you just acknowledge it. Like that's
yeah.
just part of life, right?
That's true, and that's not related just to drawing. That's
Mhm.
something related for any activity that you can do, and that applies the same for your work. So I learned that working with these misconceptions during my workshops gives to my students this set of skills to reapply on other fields. So I feel like this artistic part that we have in visual thinking applies to recognize the human part that you have. So that's a powerful thing in visual thinking.
Yeah, no, I love that. And like even from the non-artistic, which actually I would argue that I think programming and software engineering is an art. I think because you're creating very creative solutions, every day. And yes, sometimes you just do it the same way that it's always been with, algorithms and whatever you may be doing, right? Or design patterns, but it's still a very creative line of work.
And talking
And
about the creative part, in software development, there are a lot of creative process because when you are learning how the new project is working, probably you will make a lot of mistakes, or you will have a lot of misunderstandings, or probably you will have a lot of questions. And that's fine, because it's part of the process. Make software is complex.
mhm.
Probably one of the best um, strategies that I found in this mix of visual thinking and software development is make engineering journals. So in every project that I'm working, I used to put some notes about my development processes. So this journey is mostly for me, just for me. It's a personal book, and my notes are about my sensations on this project. What are my fears? I have fear to ask my team because probably they are going to think that I'm not a good engineer on this project. You know,
Oh, so a typical imposter syndrome engineer.
yeah. It's
Yeah,
important to put on paper, and that's the power of the pen,
absolutely.
the paper. Doing this, it's a creative process that impacts on your brain and your unconscious. Because if you are able to be sincere and honestly with yourself, you will have this clear image of what is happening on your spot, and that will give you more opportunity to see how to learn new strategies to deal with it.
Mm-hmm. No, I think, yeah, that's so good. And when you're on a development team, I don't know, you have to have a little bit of trust with everyone you work with, and letting go of the fear of being wrong or looking like an idiot. It doesn't help because the faster you ask your question, if you're stuck with something or you can't think, and just talking it through sometimes. Like, I solve so many problems just asking a teammate a question where, like, as I'm asking it, I figure it out.
Yeah.
And so just having that communication line helps you just kind of switch your brain, because sometimes you're just too dialed in on a problem that you're not stepping back and you can't see a simple solution.
Oh yeah, and you
And
have
that,
to build this relationship with your team. One thing
mhm,
that I used to do in my projects is, okay, I'm understanding this business logic, which is complicated, but I need feedback, and I need to ask questions, and I need some clarifications because it's complicated. So for me, one of the best strategies that I found to do this is illustrate my PR contributions. So when I send a PR, I used to put like a graphic recording on that to explain my change and say, hey, this is my vision. I'm considering this big picture of this requirement. So please give me your feedback because this is all my vision. If you say that this is fine, is we are on the same way. But if not, that's nice because now I have your feedback and I can fix this contribution.
yep, no, I love that. And just like we said, discussing and staying on the same page is so important,
Oh yeah,
because there's a million ways that you can solve problems, right? And if you also don't have a good roadmap for your project, you might not be thinking about that too in your current architecture when you're solving problems, right?
oh yeah.
So you got to think through all that. But yeah, I think the moral of the story is just stop worrying about being an idiot and put your stuff out there, right? Because everyone, like, even if you look at a team member as like a super senior engineer, everyone's still learning every day. You're just, maybe a couple years behind that senior dev, but he's also learning stuff every day.
Oh
And
yeah,
I think the big difference between like a junior and senior level engineer, it's not how much they know, it's just how capable they are of communicating and solving a problem and
oh,
figuring
yeah,
it out.
definitely.
Yeah. So, which pup behind you right now is napping on the yellow pillow?
Oh, here this is Bimba.
Bimba?
Yeah, and
Nice.
Tulio is the official image of Visual Partnership.
Uh-oh, does Bimba get jealous of that?
Oh no,
The famous dog on the logo, a visual partner.
yeah, I think that
Oh,
it's funny because I used to design stickers to share with the community, and sometimes I used to put Tulio's face on the sticker, and after that I saw some laptops with the Tulio face on a sticker on there, and it's funny to see him
I love that. That's awesome. I like this just randomly popped in my head, but when I'm learning something and I want to remember it, one, I have to handwrite it. So I have to take physical notes, right?
Yeah.
But then another way that I love to do it is handwrite on like note cards. So,
Mm,
you can shuffle through, like if you're learning a topic, maybe just design patterns, what they are, how they work, maybe data types, or, whatever you might be learning where you have to like just kind of put in the time to,
yeah.
really nail it into your brain. Have you ever considered making little visual like learning like a learning deck of note cards with your drawings? Like that could be really cool.
Of course, in my visual thinking workshops, one of my favorite activities is work with decks. There is a specific activity using decks to build visual illustrations. But and also I remember that there is a project, the Elixir cards. There are this project was many years ago.
Yeah, what is her name? I talked to her quite a few months ago. She's a really nice lady, and I know
Yeah,
she had a couple kids and time got away, and I think that's what happened. But yeah, it's a good concept. I love that.
yeah, definitely. And I think that it's a great way to build this structure to learn something new.
Hmm.
Definitely my list.
We have a comment, the visual learning Terra deck. There we go. We can tell our futures with our Elixir visual learning cards.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Um, what's next? What do you have any big exciting projects or collaborations for Visual Partner? Where do you see Visual Partner going?
First of all, I was accepted to present a talk in All Things Open, which is an open source festival, next October in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Awesome.
So I will be there to present Elixir. It's a really big festival, and I saw that there is few people in the previous editions sharing something about Elixir or Erlang, and I say this is my moment to share my passion about Elixir. And fortunately, I was accepted. So now I'm going to show this talk in October.
That's amazing. So, do you just try to find conferences that work for you and you just submit your ideas?
Not
Or,
yet. I think that there are some specific conferences that I really
mhm.
love, and I used to watch the channels on YouTube. And it's like the Git merge or these all things open. And I like these conferences because for me it's like the opportunity to share something new with other communities. And
Mhm.
for me that means that have the opportunity to have other audience and show my work.
Yeah. Well, that's the hard part, right? Is getting people outside of the Elixir community interested in
Yeah,
Elixir.
yeah. And also it's curious because um, I would like to present something in an Elixir conference, but I didn't have the opportunity yet. So I hope that in the next editions show something on the code. Probably I will send a talk for the next Code in America.
Okay, nice. I've been thinking about it. It'd be fun to do some like code along tutorial talk or something like that.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Maybe one of these days. It's so much better to not be in person, just hide behind a camera. But I love that. So, if you were to give advice to software engineers to improve their communication or presentation skills, what would that be?
I think that be sincere. Be sincere is something complex because that means build a relationship with yourself, as I mentioned before. So if you are sincere and honest with you can build this confidence with yourself, but also with your team, which is really important. Build relationships at your work based on being sincere and honest with your learning process is something really important because have this clarity on what are you doing will bring you on the table more options to grow your skills. So probably you will have to deal with mistakes or these misconceptions about what are you doing. But it's really important to see yourself on the mirror and recognize the good part, but also the bad parts. And for me, I feel like this is part of my journey. Recognize my advantages and my disadvantages. It's complicated because nobody likes to see the bad parts because it's hard to recognize that, you know. So for
Yeah.
me, is that be sincere. What I'm doing when I'm drawing a graphic recordings is like draw like a portrait or something. So it's like putting all the elements without put this judgment about if it's good or is something bad. I feel like that
Yeah.
would
No, I
be
love
nice.
that. It reminds me of one of my very first pull requests when I was like just figuring out how to program and think. It was bad. But I submitted my first PR, and the engineers that I was working with at the time, I'm still pretty good friends with them. They'll still make fun of me for this. I submitted this if else block,
Ah, yeah.
this Christmas tree of of logic, where it was just like if block, if block, if block. It was so nasty, and I got made fun of so bad for it. And but I always think about that moment because of, like, yes, I got made fun of for that PR, but the feedback I got from it made me like so much better. Like I learned so much from writing one little silly function with a bunch of nested if blocks. But yeah, I think like just having an understanding of where you are, like you need a good honest opinion of where your skill set is, right?
Yeah.
And then you also have to know when that imposter syndrome is creeping in. You have to remind yourself, like, hey, but I've also done all this stuff. So am I overthinking this and being too hard on myself? And you need that fine balance. And I think it's really hard to find
Ah, yeah.
because you always want it. You always doubt yourself. It's like every time I hit publish or go live, I'm like, shoot, am I going to say something really stupid? Or did I already say something really stupid? And that those thoughts you kind of just have to turn off
Right.
because of course I said something stupid. But as long as you accept that, then you're good to go, right?
Yeah, and also I feel like the software community, I mean, the software world in terms of this professional activity, you can find a lot of resources here. Resources in terms of maybe you can have mentors or you can just have a group of friends just to share these feelings or these sensations, not even with your team, but you can have this support from many other resources to grow your skills. I feel like this is what I really like to work on this professional activity because there are a lot of things that maybe it's complicated to find in other professional activity.
Hmm. Yeah, I would say like it's really important to do code reviews. Even if it's a personal project, have friends look at your code, comment on your code, and also do the same. Like it's important to read code because I know I probably sound like a broken record because I've said this in a lot of my podcast episodes,
Yeah.
but like I learned the most from programming looking at other people's projects
Oh yeah.
because I'll be like, oh my gosh, I don't even know how to code. Because you'll look at code base that's just like so well organized and just written in a different way than you write code. And it kind of unlocks like
Yeah.
new skill sets like instantly just because you read someone else's code base.
I remember that like 4 or 5 years ago, light bills was released, and everybody start to explore how to implement the Phoenix light views on your Phoenix projects. And I have the idea to explore the code base. So I download the repo, I put the EX, and I start to explore the code and see how the template engine was working. Understand, the very basics of this project and how the live view stuff works in terms of code. I mean, the internals. After that, after this experience, with my first experience with my first client at Erlang Solutions, I was really scared because I felt that I wasn't able to understand the project. And I say, okay, don't worry. Do you remember when you explored the code base for understand the live view? We can repeat this. So I can read the PR merge, see the requirement, see how what it means this requirement, and maybe try to solve this requirement because
Mm-hmm.
I can put my branch on that commit before these solutions, and I can see how, from my perspective, I can solve this, which is fine. It's just an exercise. But
Mm-hmm.
after that, I can compare my solution with the solution merge. So make this this comparison makes me feel to understand the things that I need to be clear with this team dynamic.
Yep.
So that's what I love Git because Git gives you all the footprints to understand what others are building software.
Yeah, Git is a good superpower, right? Because it's the history of a code base, and you can see all the changes. What's I whenever I enter a new team or new project and you're inheriting code, I feel like you're always a little overwhelmed
Yeah.
because you're unfamiliar, and it takes a long time, depending on the size of the project, to fully understand what everything is going on. And really, until you have a chance to get your hands on every piece of it, you're probably not going to understand all of it for a while.
Definitely.
I remember, I mean, a lot of my projects now are all started by me, so it's a little different when that happens. But I remember the last startup I worked for, it was a social streaming music platform.
Nice.
And when I first got on the team, I was like overwhelmed. Like, I think I don't even think I fully understood everything that was happening in the code base like 8 months into my job because it was just like that large. And I think it's a normal feeling
Yeah.
to feel like you don't know what's going on. But it's part of it, right? I think being able to read code is probably the top skill to acquire for being a good software engineer.
Yeah. And one good strategy that I have to work with Git is I name this technique as commit driven development, inspired of test driven development.
I already love the name of it. I'm
So
excited. Bring
you
it on.
write first your test before code the solution. Before to code the solution, you have to write all your commits one by one, because that means that you have clear what are you
Oh,
what
wow. Dude, I love that. I almost feel like I want to integrate that process at
really
my dev
simple.
shop.
The technique is simple, write your commits, but for understand what you have to do, that's the complex part.
No, wow. I love that because I mean, even like I find myself, you get distracted and you'll start fixing other things in your branch that you shouldn't be fixing. And then you start getting super large PRs and stuff that you shouldn't be doing.
Yeah,
Wow. Look at the wisdom we get from Carlo today.
that that was
I'm lucky.
my Git merge talk.
Dude,
The
I love that. Is it up on YouTube or anything?
Yeah,
Anywhere to watch it? Okay.
excellent.
Make sure share the link with me and I'll put it in the description of this too because it sounds like a really good chat
Yeah.
or talk, I should say. Wow, I love it. Well, if anyone has questions for Carlo, now would be a good time to do it. Um, wow, thank you so much for being on here. It was awesome to meet you. Um, maybe someday we will meet in person, and maybe we'll even make some content together. I think it would be a lot of fun. If you're interested, I would be.
I'm pretty sure. I'm really happy to be here. I saw all your hard work on all the last months, and really many thanks for this and for your content. I really feel inspired watching your interviews and watching your content, because I know that it's a hard work, a lot of time invested on this. So thank you for that contribution for the community.
Oh, thanks, man. No, it's great. And honestly, I love doing these. I love doing interviews. It forces me to stay relevant and know what's happening.
Yeah.
And I get to meet all these really awesome people. Like, I feel like every week I'm just like, wow, I just like all these, like the whole month of August is just awesome people coming on, and it's amazing.
Yeah, I saw Adolfo on the agenda.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So it'll be good. And the live streams are the easiest for me too, because I don't have to edit anything. I just talk, and the editing is what gets tiring. But it's still fun. Like I enjoy making my tutorial videos and all that. The editing wears you out. So you can break it up with good live streams, and then it's a good balance.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I appreciate you. I'm sure I'm speaking for everyone. We love your work, and every time you share your visual storytelling, it's just, I love it. Like, I'm going to, now that I'm thinking about it, the one that you made for me, and was it with Sasha?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I want to get that framed. I think it would be a cool office piece.
Yeah.
But all right, well, thank you so much, Carlo. I appreciate you. And if you ever want to come back on, just reach out. You're always a welcomed guest. So
For sure. I think that I feel like we can have a lot of collaborations together in the future.
I think it would be a lot of fun, and I'm always interested in it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you everyone that tuned in, and have a great weekend, and I'll see you guys in the next live stream. Testing.